And our first story of the day is the Anthropic copyright settlement gets the green light. So, if you guys haven't been following this so far, Anthropic has had a class lawsuit brought against it for using authors' works. Authors are now looking to get paid for the stuff that Anthropic is using for training their AI on in their database. The U.S. District Judge, William Alsop, has granted preliminary approval now to the $1.5 billion class action settlement. This basically equates to about $3,000 per published work that's in this class action set. The If your works were used to get in this, there is a list that you can check to see if you are on it.
Well,
And
there
Thomas, you
will
have more
be
details about that.
Yeah, there will be a list. There are a bunch of unofficial lists that various organizations have been putting out. That's their best guess at what the actual list is going to be. The court is going to release its own list, or the class is going to have its own list. With these class action settlements, there's often going to be a website. Once that website is live, we'll for sure cover it here. But just because you're not on the list, that author that what is it the Atlantic has, or the Authors Guild, just because you're not on
Right,
those lists, it
right.
doesn't mean that you're not included. And just because you are on those lists, it doesn't mean you are included. There's a lot of other factors that go into it. Wait for the final list before celebrating or buying a new car or whatever.
So one of my favorite parts of this story is that Alsop, this is a judge who is known for giving really good rulings on tech cases and stuff like that. He deemed the revised terms sufficient, $3,000, but this is so key. He noted that the payout is far below the maximum statutory damages. So he threw a warning shot at these other AI companies that might be using these things, because saying, hey, I'm not punishing you as bad as I could be. So y'all watch out, because this is a lot of money you could be dealing with right now.
Yeah, so a few things to note. If you're in the class, and there's 500,000 books that are in the class. So if you've been published back in the day or up until 2 or 3 years ago, there's a good chance that you're in the class, particularly if your book was in the top 500,000 most popular books. If you're traditionally published, you're likely only to get half of the money. So traditionally published books are going to get about $1,500 minus fees and whatnot, and maybe nothing depending on your contract with your publisher. If you're independently published, you're likely going to get the full $3,000 minus the fees. There's a lot of piglets at the trough who get to eat before you do, but the starting price is $3,000 per book. So if you have 10 books in the class and you're independently published, that's $30,000. This is significant money for some authors. Now, if you're traditionally published and you have a rights reversion letter, I believe in many cases you may be able to get the full $3,000. So, some of you listening, you were traditionally published, your publisher issued a rights reversion letter, and so you're going to be able to get both halves. Now, I suspect that moving forward, it's going to become a lot harder to get rights reversion letters from publishers, because this is going to be a
This is money.
massive windfall for publishers. Publishers are struggling right now. So indie authors are gaining in the lists. We've been covering this regularly, that traditional publishers, their revenue is dropping every month. Indie authors' revenue is climbing every month, right? This is a trend that's been going on for years. And so for the traditional publishers who are hungry, they're going to be getting checks for tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars from Anthropic, maybe millions actually. This is $1.5 billion pot of money, and publishers are going to be able to get half of all of the books in that pot that are traditionally published. And I'm guessing that the majority of the books in the pot are traditionally published books, because those are the kinds of books that would have a
Right.
registered copyright and be notable enough for Anthropic to train on. So there's millions and millions of books. Most indie authors don't register their copyrights, so most indie authors wouldn't be eligible. In which, so this is another change that I suspect a lot of indie authors are now going to start paying the $35 per book to register their copyright, because in addition to all of the protections that you get from having a registered copyright, it's now like buying a lottery ticket. You get featured in one of these class action lawsuits, because this lawsuit only covers Anthropic and it only covers them pirating the books. It doesn't cover OpenAI. in ChatGPT. It doesn't cover Google's Gemini. It doesn't cover XAI. It doesn't cover Qwen or DeepSeek or any of the Chinese models. Although good luck getting any money out of the Chinese models for copyright violation.
Yeah.
um,
So, I mean, and in some cases, this is the only money the publishing company has made off that book. And so if you're connecting what we talked about before, with like a lot of traditionally published books aren't even selling 12 copies, but suddenly you can make $3,000 off of it, it might be a whole lot harder to get those reversion letters now, because now there's actually some value in hanging on to this, because if some startup AI company messes up and suddenly you can go after them with a class action suit and make some money off all these dead books in your back catalog, it may be really hard to get a hold of those now.
Although I will say the books that weren't making any money and no one was reading and no one was talking about are far less likely to be included in the class than books that were selling zillions of copies. So J.K. Rowling is for sure going to get paid for every one of her Harry Potter books. But obscure author
And she's
number
not going to
5.
feel that.
Yeah.
Oh, I
So
got $30,000.
but I didn't double check this, but I'm pretty sure this is tax-free income too, because money that gained in court cases typically is tax-free. I'm not a lawyer. Check with your CPA, but potential. This is really good, clean money that you just get to spend if you're an author. As soon as that database comes out, we will cover it.